Hello, Sophie and Emily. We're going to do an Agony Auntie session. So the question, because it's Valentine's week, and this will come out after Valentine's Day. So it's about love and relationships. And we've been sent two questions. And one is, how can I approach a new relationship with a healthy balance of excitement and caution? I'm a massive overthinker and I'm constantly worried I'm going to get hurt.
I feel you. New relationships are hard, not wanting to get your hopes up, but also wanting to allow yourself to be excited, because that's like part of the good part of being in a new relationship. And the reality is, there is always a chance that you're going to get hurt, right? That is the truth. There's no way of having any relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship relationship, a family relationship, without the possibility of getting hurt.
Love is a risky business, right?
Right, exactly. Love is a risky business, but the alternative to love is just being on your own and being not in relationship with anyone in any sense. And that is incredibly lonely. I think I would say just recognizing, there is a chance that you might get hurt, but maybe it's worth the risk. Staying in the now. What am I enjoying? I think we have this sort of societal thing about relationships that the definition of a successful relationship ends in a long-term partnership when you're with somebody for years and years and years. And that's our kind of cultural expectation of what a good relationship looks like. And actually, you can have really successful short-term relationships. You can have really successful one-night stands that fit the bill of what you want in that moment. So I think if you can also change your definition of what you think of as success in a relationship, that actually, even if you just have a few months with this person, but it's a really good few months that ends as well as things can end, that actually maybe you can see that as a success as well, because usually you learn something in relationship with someone else.
I think that's great.
That's nice. My first thought was, I think often with emotions, it's more about knowing how to ride the waves than not having the waves. You are going to go through the excitement and you're going to go through the fear, and we can't really control what we feel. We can only change how we relate to the feelings that come. Finding ways to enjoy the excitement and finding ways to soothe yourself when you're worried. And I think if you're a person who's an overthinker, that's your red flag that what you're feeling is anxious and fearful. It's when your head is very noisy. So I'd almost say oh, look, gosh, I'm analyzing. I'm bringing your awareness essentially to, oh, my head is really busy. That probably means my body is feeling scared and my mind is trying to solve the fear I feel in my body about getting hurt. So if you can find ways, whether it's exercise to release tension, whether it's breath work, whether it's seeing a friend, hot bath, what are the things for you which help soothe the fear in your body? And then you'll find probably that even just doing 20 squats on the spot in your bathroom, just to get rid of some of the adrenaline. And sometimes you need to go up to release, and sometimes you need to go down. So sometimes you need exercise to release, or clenching and relaxing. And sometimes you need hot baths and soothing things. Then that should settle your head more easily than just trying to stop thinking.
And I think the thing that maybe joins both of what you're saying is trying not to look too far into the future, of enjoy this date, this time, and keep your skylines short. Keep it in the day, as in the AA, because that will allow you to get to know him or her, and it will allow you to show your real self when you're not worrying about what you should be like in order to have the kind of long-term relationship.
The only thing I would add is that, as well as keeping in the moment, and this is maybe just a more general thing, is that I would also just be curious about the fear of getting hurt. There's probably a reason for that.
Yeah.
And it's probably that you've been really hurt in the past. And so I wonder if there's also something around, in a longer term sense, not necessarily to do with this particular relationship, thinking about healing the hurt that you've had, so that you can go into new relationships with a kind of cleaner slate in a way.
I think that's a really nice way to end that. So the next question is, I feel like I'm losing the spark in my relationship. How can I keep the love alive amid the challenges of daily life and responsibilities? You two have been in long-term relationships a long time. You may have had moments of this. I have been in a relationship for decades, and I have had many moments of this. So I just want to normalize it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Immediately my head goes to Esther Perel in her book, Mating in Captivity, because if that person hasn't read that book, I would really recommend it, because essentially that's at the heart of what she's trying to investigate, is how do we stay alive and vibrant and the spark of a relationship when repetition and safety and security and this can become deadening. And in fact, I think she talks about how one of the main reasons people end up having affairs is because it brings a feeling of aliveness. That's often what she hears people say.
And having something new, when you see something new in your partner, them doing something else or having a different conversation, that ignites erotic energy. And what she talks about as erotic energy isn't just sexual energy, but it is imaginative, creative, alive. It's vibrancy.
And one of the things I took away from that is that's something that you want to cultivate between you and your partner, but it's also something you want to cultivate on your own. Erotic alive energy from going to a dance class, from having fun with your friends, and then you bring that back into the space between you and your partner because you've gone off and had fun and had a laugh and loosened up, and then you can bring energy, or your partner vice versa. But also that sometimes just remembering that part of, I think, what can be deadening about long-term relationships is repetition. Like you're getting up every day and you're doing the same thing and you have the
Sex
same
on Saturday
habits.
mornings.
And your children, if you're that kind of age, are going to school or whatever. Partly realizing if you can tune in, partly just even by doing a breathing in and out, to realize how actually tenuous the reality of life is. That your life, your partner's life, your family life, none of this is in fact permanent. And tomorrow everything could fall apart. And finding ways, I don't mean that in a negative sense. I just
No, but
mean
like
being aware
gratitude.
of
Yeah.
the tenuousness of life. And you can do that just by noticing your breath. You can do that, but also you can do that by doing new things with your partner, like mum said. Oh, look, there you are, a completely different person. What about you, Em? I feel like we've talked for a long time.
I would say that I think it's something I find hard because I am a person of routine. And so I like routine. I like doing the same things. So I totally agree that like the spark is created often by doing something new together, like finding ways to have that energy of being playful. And I think maybe there's also value. I think there is value in schedules. I do. For me personally, to like schedule time with my partner, and it's not necessarily like doing something new, actually. Like, I don't do things new very often, I'm going to be honest. Occasionally. It's extremely rare that we'll ever bother getting a babysitter just for me and him to go on a date because I'm like, I don't want to spend money just for us to go out together. So if we ever get a babysitter, it's like usually to go out, see friends or do something with other people. And then I think it was like one of our birthdays and we were like, oh, we'll get a babysitter just for us to go out. And that having that sort of scheduled time with each other, which is it was in some ways exactly the same as what we do every evening, which is just have dinner together, but somehow making it special. So like I think you can find specialness in the stuff you kind of are already doing, and maybe as well as newness.
And I think that idea of scheduling when you're fighting the challenges of daily life, when you're scheduling time to just be with each other rather than exchanging to-do lists and whose turn it is to do what, means that you can reconnect in a different way. And Emily Nagoski, who's great at talking about sex, and I don't think, by the way, sex is the only spark in the relationship, because in some ways you have to be, what people talk about sex is that you have to feel warm and connected to have sex, and rather than going from cold to hot. So that having continuing small kindnesses to each other, small moments of interactions of what John Gottman talks about, bids for connection. But also what Emily Nagoski talks about, and lots of the kind of sex therapists, is you do have to schedule time that is boundary time, whether it's, as Em says, going on a date, doing something together, because otherwise you just get lost. The relationship gets lost in all the kind of chores, and then it really does just feel like a chore.
And I think the other part of it is also just to think about when I'm feeling resentful, that's like the least, like you're just so annoyed with the other person. And I think it's so easy in the sort of chores of day-to-day life to build up resentment against the other person. So I think as well as thinking about the things to do for the spark. Also think about actually having really honest conversations with your partner about how you are feeling, or if there are things that they're doing that are driving you crazy, like having those sort of productive, hopefully, sometimes maybe, conversations that sort of allow you to have a really open and vulnerable connection. But I think, like you're saying, Mum, then allow for that connection, because actually having dinner with a partner when you're just really pissed off with them already, it's not going to solve it unless you're feeling like you want to be close to them anyway.
The only last thing I would add is I was listening to actually an Esther Perel episode talking on a podcast to a couples therapist. She said apparently in research, the biggest blocker for women in their sort of libidos is motherhood and that kind of responsibility. And the question had the phrase responsibility in it. And she was saying, no one's going to want to have sex with you if you don't want to have sex with you. And like, do you want to have sex with you? Do you feel in mother mode and not at all tuned in to your own sexiness or wanting to be touched? Or so what do you also to want to have to actually to shift the responsibility mode, which is like the anti-sex mode of let me take care of you, into the like, I want you to take care of me. This is what I want, the desire mode, which she obviously talks a lot about.
I think that's really helpful. I think one more thing, I mean, there are so many things, obviously one can do a whole kind of series of podcasts on this, is recognizing your different languages of love, what your language of love is. And it may be with hugs or words, or and the other person's language of love might be with deeds and acts, and like talking about that together so that that can help protect against the resentment when you feel like you're the one that's doing all the emotional work and they may be resentful that they're doing the practical or whatever. So one last question is Valentine's Day or this week, and I've had many questions on my Instagram feed and Facebook and on my app about when you're bereaved, when your partner has died, around Valentine's Day, and that this sort of week when all you see on social media is roses and love, and how incredibly painful that is. And it's not like you've forgotten that you're grieving, but it sticks another knife in that is another kind of layer of painful. And I don't know if you had any ideas about that. Should I start with?
I think they should just cancel Valentine's Day. I think Valentine's Day is a rubbish holiday. I think it's not great if you're in a couple. I think it's not great if you're single. And I think it's obviously incredibly painful if you've just been bereaved. So personally, I would just get rid of Valentine's Day. But obviously that's not the reality that we live in. But I'm just not, forced, all this forced lovey-doveyness. It's not my thing.
I love that. It's about Hallmark cards and flower shops, right?
Yeah, like even if you're in a couple, I don't know. It just feels so like,
unnatural.
to me.
You feel revolted. What's it?
No, it's not revolted. It's a little bit how I feel about New Year's Eve, which is I don't like being forced into told you must have fun on this night, or you must do something romantic on this night, and it makes me just
pissed off.
Contrary. It makes me feel contrary. This is obviously not a helpful answer to this question, but it is how
I actually think it is quite helpful.
What were you going to say, Mum? Because I feel in a way you're probably the person who's most qualified to answer this question.
So I was given ideas by other people. One is the thing that we always say, which is acknowledge that it's painful and legitimize and validate what you're experiencing. And maybe have a rant. You talk to a friend how much you hate it. So recognize that this adds to what is already extremely painful. I think other people gave me ideas is they send themselves a card from their partner, or they buy themselves flowers, or they meet a friend or girlfriends or men friends, whatever it is, and go on a kind of non-Valentine date and go to a movie or have a drink. And so to kind of acknowledge it in a way that is being gentle and kind of tender towards yourself, whilst acknowledging it's painful.
Those are lovely ideas. I think also you could just delete your social media for that week.
I agree.
Turn off things that you don't need to see that might just feel like a stab.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Things that you can avoid.
And my only other thought is if it actually is a day that you have enjoyed with your partner before they died. We've talked before, Mum's talked before about continuing bonds. And you could have a date with them. You could light a candle. You could talk to them. You could arrange that evening as a night that you really wanted to be close to them. And you could talk about the times, the dates that you've had together, or the happy times you've had on Valentine's Day, and choose it as a time to connect with love, with them, or your sense of them, or the presence that they still have with you. And if that embracing it is easier than trying to pretend it isn't happening, then perhaps you can still have a date with your loved one in a different form.
I think that's a lovely idea. And I have written about relationships on our Therapy Works newsletter, which you can sign up to on Substack, with some other ideas if you want to read them. If you think this episode would be useful for a friend or a family member, do share it and help people find us. It's fantastic when you can rate and review. And until the next episode, thank you very much.